Hey guys, welcome to this Riot Squad Media label exclusive. We are here with Vic from Pirate Press Records. Vic, thank you so much for joining us today.
My absolute pleasure.
How have you guys been doing? You know, we are still currently sitting in pandemic, sadly, and
well, I wrote a thing about this for New Noise magazine a couple of months ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, and I was explaining that whilst my job at Pirates Press Records has been greatly affected by COVID because I don't have any bands on tour, we've still been putting out most of the things that we said we'd put out. We haven't really put things on the back burner because we know that everyone at home and everyone in the record stores is just desperate for new music. So we've been really just like carrying on putting out things, and it's even enabled me to spend the time doing things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I had bands on tour. So for example, last year we reissued 4 of the Agrolites LPs and did the box set. And that took so much time, finding all of the different artwork, proofing it, going back and forth with the bands. And if the band had been on tour and I'd have been working full out, you know, on all of the projects that we had planned because our bands were going to be doing so much touring, that wouldn't have happened. And so that's I guess a bonus from COVID. And a similar thing's happening with the Subhumans back catalogue that we're hoping to put out near the end of this year or next year. And time enables me to do projects that are really fun and rewarding in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, you weren't always with Pirate Press. You were with another label before.
Yeah, I worked at Revelation Records for 20 years, Revelation Records and Revelation Distribution. And Rev Distribution were the exclusive distributor for Pirates Press Records for the 12 or 13 years, like when they very first started. Skippy's the owner of Pirates Press Records. We had a mutual friend and they did an introduction. We took the label on very early because friend of a friend just come on board. Didn't know it would grow to be the label that it is. And eventually it was time for me to move on from Revelation, and Pirates Press Records had been growing and growing. And it was a little overwhelming for Skippy to be running the pressing plant brokerage side of things, Pirates Press, as well as Pirates Press Records. And so it just seemed like the perfect time for me to transition over to work for Skippy full time. And it's been brilliant. I mean, I timed it really well. It was, like only 8 months before we did that big Rock the Ship music festival. And the label's just been growing in leaps and bounds. And it's been a really exciting time to be part of it.
Yeah, Rock the Ship, if I'm not mistaken, is a music festival, but it's on like military boats, or I want to say
Skippy's done maybe 4 or 5 of them, I believe. I'm a little confused at the early years because when the business had been going, it was like there might have been like a 1 year and a 2 year, and then it became a 5 year and then a 10 year. And then this was the 15-year anniversary of Pirates Press.
Wow.
And at different times, he's done them in different venues, but this one had grown so big and so many of the bands that we had been able to play. So he hired, and we rented an aircraft carrier in the Alameda Naval Museum, I think it was called. Don't remember what the museum was called, but it was just huge. It was huge, and we had to like have a stage craned in, and then we had 4 nights of club shows as well, and it was one of the best weekends of my life.
How was that, looking at a stage being craned in? I'm assuming by either like another crane on, like I'm sure they have dock cranes.
Yeah, it was a dock crane it was nuts. I was not there because it was at like, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning or something.
Oh my God.
The day before. And I was running around. I was mostly working all the club shows. But it was nuts. I mean, and the banners, and I mean, there's tons of stuff on our social media, and there's videos on YouTube of like highlights of Cock Sparrow's set, Subhuman set, Street Dog set on the actual ship, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I had serious FOMO that weekend.
Really?
I was like, wow, this looks
And it was a
brilliant.
beautiful, amazing sunset all over the East Bay. And so you were like looking at the stage, and then you turn around and there was this like insane sunset behind you. It was gorgeous. Yeah, it was really wonderful.
Now you guys are on the West Coast.
Yeah.
California. How is this, like the scene there? To me, I always picture it because I'm in Canada, so, and especially where I am, there's not a huge scene. So I can only imagine just the traffic of musicians and, you know, shows that were happening on pre-COVID.
Yeah, there's a show. If you want to go to a show every night, you can go to a show every night. And I work remotely. I did before COVID. I because my job at Revelation was based in Orange County, I lived in Long Beach and I worked remotely from Long Beach. And pre-COVID, I would go up to Oakland, where Pirates Press is based, Emeryville. I would go up there like every other month for a week. But Oakland and the East Bay have an amazing punk scene. Long Beach has a completely different amazing punk scene. And I think we all totally took it for granted. And now that we've experienced a full year of no shows, we are remorseful, and we will, our penance will be that we will go to as many shows as we possibly can once we are all vaccinated, whether or not we're still wearing masks or not. We'll just be happy to, go see bands and support them. Support bands touring, or just see local bands and see our friends. Yeah,
I know that's been the toughest thing, is having it taken away. And like you said, we took that right for granted. And it's going to be so beautiful when it does come back, mask or not. I think a lot of us are ready. Like, give me the shot, give me the vaccine, let's go, put a mask on, and I just want to be there. I know I feel that way. I know Terry does. So everybody go get your vaccines.
What's the situation in Canada like? Are you going to be getting yours soon?
So it's a phased approach. So it looks like May. Because I'm a phase 2, so I'm an essential worker. So I'll be, my company's kind of trying to get us to get it sooner, and they got approvals for it. So yes, fingers crossed. Yes, I'm very excited. Unfortunately, some people don't necessarily feel the same, but I'm not those people. So I will be lined up and ready to go. Like I said, wherever you want it, I will.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Like it's, as this airs after we've announced camp now, it's hard for me to be not able to cross the border right now, because I am essentially helping plan camp, and there's a lot of things I have to rely on, pictures and videos and word of mouth, and not personal experiences. So that's been tough. But Canada right now, in my province, I'm in Ontario, they did a lockdown. Our numbers went right down. Lockdown's open. I haven't checked today. They were kind of just climbing a little bit, but nothing crazy. I hope that the trend continues to go down.
Yeah.
We've had long-term seniors. I come from a place near the Arctic Circle. They got one, and then it spread like wildfire fire, and it really did a lot of damage. So nobody's taking this, as a joke. It can, it can kill. It has killed. So.
Well, you didn't have a president.
Oh no.
Spreading tons and tons of misinformation about it for the first.
Yeah.
So that helped. You have a competent government.
They'll shut it down if they have to, and that's been the message always. People can apply for assistance, so they get $2,000 a month if they can't work.
Fantastic.
It really is, because it helps so much. And yes, they're going to get taxed on that, but it's so much better than losing your house or wondering when you're.
Yeah.
Like I watch you guys in Texas right now. Is just my heart really goes out.
Heartbreaking.
What's going on?
The one of the graphic designers at Pirates Press had her baby the Sunday of when all that terrible weather started.
Oh my gosh.
And she was in hospital whilst the power was out at her house. Oh. And then she couldn't go home because the power was out. And they were feeding everybody in the hospital canned food because no food could be delivered. And after she went to her brother's house, and after she left, that they lost power in the hospital. And it's just a nightmare.
Yeah. And, I really hope, especially for our friends here in Texas, just we as punks, one of us falls down, the rest of us pick you up. So I really hope if there's anything that is coming through that way to let us know so we can put out the word and have people help, because, through this has been supporting, buying merch, supporting our musicians. It's been definitely a message. You guys right now, I'm sure, are seeing venues closing down.
Yeah. And it's strange. We thought that there would be a lot of record stores closing down during this time, but it actually seems like so many of the record stores have done amazing business doing mail order, and that so many people have been supporting them, and the money that people would normally spend going to shows and buying t-shirts, they've just been increasing their vinyl addiction or pacifying their vinyl addiction. And it's, retail therapy is real therapy. And when you're sitting at home bored and you just go to, you're like, oh, well, when I can go to my local record store, I don't want it to have closed down, so I'll order from it. And then in turn, they order from us and all the other great labels that are out there. So I think that if we can make it through the next few months, a lot of the record stores will be in good standing. Okay. Venues, it's been a lot harder.
Yes, I heard that NEVA just picked up a very large grant recently to help, but the distribution, that's going to take a long time. I cannot imagine logistically the scope, because it's all of America and there's so many places that need it right now. So
there's been so much great fundraising locally here for Alex's Bar in Long Beach and Chain Reaction in Orange County, and bands coming through and photographers coming through, and like there was a photograph book to raise money for Alex's. A whole bunch of the bigger Orange County bands did like exclusive t-shirt designs, and they sold out the first day. Like, it's been really heartwarming to see the punk community step up and really help a lot of venues. But then to the same extent, it's heartbreaking when you see fundraisers for venues like the Troubadour, and it's just like, well, why doesn't Elton John just give him $1 million? Because that's where he started. Do you know what I mean? Like, why does it always fall on the people that are struggling to pay their mortgage or their rent and feed their families and their animals or whoever? You know what I mean? It's like the stinking rich don't seem to be stepping up and helping these venues, which, that's a bit of a bee in my bonnet.
Yeah, it's tough to watch, right? Like, a lot of us are working paycheck to paycheck, aren't even working at all. And, I always try to set a little bit aside to support a band. And Laura is sadly a victim because I can't afford the shipping. So I send everything to Laura. So she now has
she gets one big box from me.
But yeah, it's those little things. And, the community's been really, gosh, the amount of fundraisings I've seen, even, we speak to Lynn from Back Up, and she did Basis Against Racist. They're almost at $4,000 for Black Lives Matters. And they're not necessarily helping COVID, but they're helping another fantastic cause that's been.
Pirates Press Records did a ton of auctions last year, all throughout the summer, for Black Lives Matter, social justice causes. And I think we got to almost 20 grand, which was amazing.
That's awesome.
I personally started sewing masks in April, and I raised nearly $4,000 for food banks, Doctors Without Borders, and Black Lives Matter charities.
I will just say this too, they're my favorite. I bought them for my, right at the beginning of COVID, I bought a bunch for my whole staff at the restaurant because I couldn't find. We have a bunch of Barstool Preachers ones. But I love mine. So I have a couple of them now, and they're in a rotation, and they're the only ones that I'm but I wear them all the time. They're fantastic. And to know that they're going to a great cause is even better.
Totally. It was great because we had a whole bunch of t-shirts at Pirates Press Records where we had some Barstool Preachers ones that said on the back, "Bring on 2020," which definitely was not the phrase of the year. And then, because they were meant to be about the election and change, and both in the UK and in America. And then we had, you know how when you go to a show, sometimes the band have the T-shirts in large plastic totes, and they've rolled the T-shirts and put some masking tape around them and written the size on the roll.
Yeah.
A bunch of Cocksparrow T-shirts where their merch person had done that, but then the tape left this residue on there because they didn't get undone like relatively soon after the tour. So they had just been sitting at Pirates Press Records for someone to take to Goodwill or, you know, donate to a shelter or something for a long time. So I was like, send them to me and I will make them into masks, and then I will donate most of the proceeds. You know, I covered the you know, the elastic and the thread and stuff, and then made these. I felt like such a grown-up sending donations for like $300 to Doctors Without Borders, $500 to a food bank in Long Beach. I was like, I am a proper grown-up. I send donations because I've never been in a financial position to write a check, you know, not write a check because it's all digital now, but you know what I mean? It's like $25 was my normal donation when there was a cause I wanted to support. So it felt really great.
Oh, that's really, and your time, like people often forget, and we talk about this often, that your time is just as valuable as your money, if not more.
Well, this for me felt like I was making a difference and doing something good. So I donated my time, but it got a little overwhelming at some points because you couldn't buy masks then. So everybody really wanted them. But I was working 9 to 5 and sewing 6 till 11.
Oh my gosh. And
then sewing 8 hours on a Saturday and 8 hours on a Sunday. And my back was broken. But I also knew that I was protecting people, and that how, you know, that, and right in the beginning, I remember in mid-April sewing and my back really hurting, and I would be sewing and sewing and sewing. And I would be like, those nurses taking care of people in COVID wards, they don't get to quit when their back hurts. Carry on, Martin. Carry on sewing. Take a couple of Advil. Carry on sewing. And I got through it, and it was fine. But I make things for, like, I'm a sewer, but really simple things. Like I make baby blankets and dog bandanas. Like I don't really, I sew because it's relaxing, but I don't find sewing things that are hard relaxing. Sewing things that are simple is relaxing. So I had this huge stash of fabric as well as doing all the band shirt ones, and that was the hardest thing, is no one could even find fabric when it all kicked off. So I was lucky that I had that. I was lucky that I was a hoarder, is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, that's great. You know, it's anytime you can put in time or money, it helps somebody, you know, and it feels good too, just personally, knowing.
Yeah. I mean, it was physically draining and exhausting, but emotionally and mentally, it was better for me than fucking doom scrolling or watching the news or even just talking to people constantly. Because all it was going around in the same circles of, man, this sucks. I'm really anxious. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, didn't really help when you were processing with people. My doggy wants to say hi. Maisie. It's Maisie Moo.
Hello.
She thinks it's getting close to dinner time, but it's not. So I felt like it was good for my emotional and mental health, even if it like physically was draining. And I slept better because I was tired, and all of those things I think helped. Plus, knowing that I was making a difference.
Yeah. Laura and I both decided that it was going to be the perfect time to paint my house in Laura's apartment. So every night we'd be like, oh my God, I just spent 8 hours because I did the whole upstairs. But it was to take that mind completely out of what was going on. You know, I was working full time at home with 2 girls who are trying to learn online learning for the first time, and they're not older kids, so they didn't understand computers much or internet. They know now, but so, you know, for me to paint or do this is kind of how this was started, was just a way to take that mind off everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I painted the inside of my house in the autumn. Yeah. I've been there too. I've got the kitchen left to go.
And it feels good. Like, you get that sense of reward and like the serotonin is just flowing by the time you're done everything.
Yeah, for sure. And it needed doing, and you procrastinate it because you've always got something else to do. It's always just like, well, I was going to paint that Saturday, but I'm going to go see my friend. But when you don't have that option, it kind of forces you to knuckle down and get it done, which is good.
Now, how are the bands throughout all this time? Because you got to speak to them. We don't,
They really vary. So a lot of them, some of them are doing different things. Jessie from the Agrolites started I think it's a 10-month intensive course to become a barber, and he started on Monday.
Wow.
So that means that when the Agrolites are on tour, he'll be singing and playing guitar and doing Jessie things. And then when he's home, he'll be able to have a supplement to his income. Because I think it's been hardest on the bands that were basically full-time touring bands, because it's all also very kind of dodgy and weird on the whole, like, well, we're self-employed, and so they weren't getting money in the beginning, and then they got some money from unemployment, and then they didn't get some money. So it's a very strange, it's the same way it's been strange, I think, for people that are like hairdressers or servers. You know what I mean? If you didn't have like a regular 9-to-5 job that you were then furloughed from, the explanation of in America, the explanation of whether you got money was very different. The Slackers have probably been the most active in terms of doing a lot of live stream shows, and even they've been finishing recording. They, have home studios and the technological know-how to be able to work on their music even remotely, because one of the singers lives in Long Beach and the rest of the guys live in New York. So they're used to working remotely and sending music back and forth. And they've done a whole bunch of live streams, and they're all wearing masks. And Dave even had like some crazy mask made that has like a hole for his saxophone. Does he play the saxophone? Yes, plays saxophone. Yeah. So the whole masked streaming thing has been good for some of our bands, and then others have just completely been like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to touch on that, because it's not what we're about. Like, you can't really imagine Subhumans doing that the way that a mellower band could. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Barstool Preachers have been writing album number 3, so that's been all consuming for them. And Subhumans are working on the liner notes for us to reissue their back catalogue of 6 albums, along with the 2 that are currently on the label. So there should be a box set for that next year. Oh, so Dick is currently typing up his. He wrote personal diaries whilst recording the records in the 80s, which is like, who had the foresight that would then be helpful for, making a really rad book about the process of being in the Subhumans in the 80s, and the the experiences of going in the studio and hearing your songs the first time, and how you went on tour. Or I don't know, I've only read the liner notes for recording the first EP, and they were great. They really like transport you to like inside Dick's head. So that stuff is still got to work on, like collecting all the photos. And the biggest issue with that is that we know where the master reels are for that we're gonna recut the records from, and they are in a safe locked space in Leeds. And the person with the key is 2 hours away in Newcastle.
Oh my.
And I think it was in October, he had a van rented to go pick them up and deliver them, because he doesn't drive. So he had a person with a van to drive to Leeds, pick them up and give them to one of the staff at Pirates Press Records' brother, who lives in Leeds. So we were like, it's going to happen tomorrow. And then lockdown happened at midnight that night and he had to cancel it. And it's still locked down in those cities. You're not allowed to travel between cities the way in Canada, you're not allowed to travel between states, right?
Yeah.
It's much stricter than it is anywhere in America. They have police at the entrances and exits of the freeway and at the train stations. It's like, it's not, they don't mess around. And it's like a $600 fine if you don't have work papers explaining why you're traveling. So hopefully that can start happening now because England is easing up its lockdown in the next couple of weeks. So once we get the master tapes, we can really start to move ahead.
Yeah,
I know that's kind of technical to talk about, but it's also kind of cool to know that like this is happening and this is what COVID stops happening and that these are all the moving parts that we do behind the scenes. And that, you know, when you pick up a record, you don't really know what's gone into getting it back into production. And when the records go out of print, like for the Subhumans back catalogue or the Agrolites back catalogue, there's usually a reason. And usually the reason is either lost artwork or lost masters.
Yeah, now are the masters on actual reels? Like, so when I took college, that was my editing. I don't want to date myself too much, but yes, I took reel-to-reel editing when I went to college. That was the audio that we used at the time. It was right before digital came in. That's not easy. I remember many hours trying to splice tapes, and it was not something that was fun for me. Now, you guys
they won't need to be spliced.
But you still don't know the conditions quite yet of these.
Well, they're probably okay because they've been in a secure storage facility, but they have to be delivered. And like Skippy and I have discussed how we don't trust FedEx or UPS we're probably like, I think maybe TJ from the Bastard Preachers is going to drive 6 hours to pick them up and then deliver them to Daryl from Coxbarra, who's doing the layout for them, and James, who recorded the last Barstool Preachers and the last Coxbarra singles, is probably going to do the baking and transferring them to be digital so that then we can remaster them and make new records. So it's all kind of like fun, cool stuff. And
that's really exciting.
The way that Pirates Press Records is with our, you know, all of our bands, we're all, you know, we're a family. So if somebody's like, you need something delivered 5 hours, then I'll go get it for you. Because that you can't be giving that to UPS because this is the only source other than, you know, you don't want to make a record from a CD unless you have to. You want the original music. So that hopefully that all comes into effect and it all moves forward, and we're really excited about it. We've got like a whole bunch of releases lined up for this spring and this summer. Tomorrow the new D-Cracks album goes on sale, and the represses of the two comps we put out, the two Oi comps that we put out in December, because we sold out of the first presses of both of them, which was really shocking. Not that we didn't expect them to, you know, do well, but we didn't really expect to sell out of the first press until bands were able to go on tour and start selling units, you know what I mean? Like being able to sell them over the merch table, that kind of thing. We were like, yeah, this will probably last us 2 years, 2 months. Wow. Oops.
Yeah, and, you know, I can only imagine now you do have some singles we're going to talk about. But, yeah, I can only imagine just the type of, you know, maneuvering you guys have to do. Essentially, your calendar just went, but you still have things that were kind of stagnant and set dates and stuff like that. Were there anything that you decided to push later and just
the biggest thing that happened was that bands were unable to record. So Barstool Preachers were planning on recording some demos in LA. Gosh, it seems such a long time ago. Last May.
Okay.
And obviously that couldn't happen because they were going to go into the studio at the same time as playing Punk Rock Bowling, and then obviously none of that happened. So they're actually recording demos in March because in the UK, because they haven't even been able to be in the same room as each other.
Yeah.
So it's more bands not getting in the studio, but the Drowns go in the studio again in March. Charger go in the studio again next week. So it's starting to move forward, and Cock Sparrow are all vaccinated as of Saturday. So that's that. Like, you know,
It's
as
hopeful.
our oldest band, you know, they're the ones we worried about the most. So that feels really, really great. And I just think that for a lot of the bands, they just want to put the records out when they can tour and support them. So there's been no rush to go into the studio, really. I mean, one of the bands we're going to be working with this spring and summer is a band called Sweat they're from the West Coast. They're based in LA and Orange County. And I think we're probably going to put their single out in May. But we decided to work with them, I think, in November. And we've just not really been rushing it, because the closer to when the album comes out to when they can play shows is kind of more fun and more practical. So if the record doesn't come out until the autumn, that's okay.
Yeah. So you guys did release another single that was from Susie Moon.
That comes out in March. April. That comes out in April. And then it's a digital single and then a 3-song 12-inch, and that comes out in May. We're really excited to be working with Susie. It only got announced last week. She is somebody that, yes, she would love to be touring and supporting it. And she had a European tour planned for last summer. She had Punk Rock Bowling planned, and now that got moved to this summer, but it's probably not going to happen until next summer for Europe for her now. But, you know, it's like I was saying, everybody still needs new music, because we've all just been stuck indoors listening to the same records. And anytime something new comes out, we play it to death. Yes. I know I do. And it feels really good to know that we are helping people get through this difficult time with music. I was thinking the other day, I was listening to a record by one of my favorite bands, Chamberlain. They self-released in America. They self-released a new album, and I think it was the first one it's their first album in maybe 20 years. They did a bunch of reunions maybe 10 years ago, and they've been like dabbling with this idea. Anyway, they put it out in December, and I was just thinking, and I've been playing it constantly, and I was thinking, I wonder how this music will make us feel in 3 or 4 years' time. Wonder whether we listen back to music that got us through the lockdown and COVID, and we have this like special place in our heart for it, or whether we're just like, oh God, I don't want to hear that. Takes us back, you know. I mean,
I've never even, it never even came to mind right now until you said that. But yeah, right. There's going to be some connections, because to me, I'm a visual learner, but I'm also a person who thrives on music you can feel. And by music I can feel, it's those especially that take me back to memories of, you know, a simpler time, or things I used to did, or like a certain smell, or like say if my mom walked or hated a certain song. There's certain songs that just invoke those feelings. And I'm going to be very interested to wait 3-4 years down the road and see what that feels like. Imagine the first song you hear at a show and you hear it.
Right. There were those things. None of us know how this PTSD is going to affect us. This band that I mentioned, Chamberlain, they're always been emotional for me, because their second album, which is when I fell in love with them, got me through my mother's death. So whenever I go see them, whether it's a reunion or even back then, I'm just like gush, like just the tears just, you know, I was 23, I was a baby, and it was a really, really hard time. And the first time I saw them was the first time I felt happiness after my mama died, like 6 months before. And then the next 6 months, I just listened to them exclusively. So I have all these associations with them anyway, and nothing happens in a vacuum. So the first band that you see, it's not going to be in a vacuum. You're going to have all these other associations, and maybe it'll all just like come out in the wash and it'll all be fine. But
I know I'm going to be I'm gonna be a mess. I'm gonna just be I'm already a snotty puddle to begin with, but I'm like super puddly that day. I'm just Kleenex, I'm gonna definitely be. I'm a person that enjoys feeling now. It wasn't always the case, so I'm excited to see what emotions evoke out. Like especially during live shows. Because I've been listening to new music constantly since this whole thing has started. It's always on. I almost dive on it. Takes me away. Just reminds me that there's not crap happening outside my window right now. So
yeah.
Thank you to you guys for putting stuff out. You've done some reissues. There's been a lot of, can we talk a little bit about Fire Press? Because the variants you guys have been putting out, oh my gosh, they are just gorgeous.
Yeah, there's some really, Skippy has been working on some really beautiful records combos recently. We're actually we've got a repress of Shock Troops in the works right now that I think is probably going to be the prettiest it's ever looked.
Wow.
But we also did this weird, the last press maybe 3 months ago that sold out already is the Black Ice, and it looks black and then you hold it up and it's all smoky and cool. But yeah, all the Galaxy vinyl, that how we did the Charger, and then all the printed records, the way we did the Drowns Hold Fast and the 45 Adapters new one, and one of the Charger records with the crazy ram skull and the bright red eyes. Yeah, like Skippy's always coming up with new things, and that's one of the coolest things is he comes up with something, and then rather than trying to convince one of his manufacturing customers to try it, we say to one of our bands, hey, we got this new thing, and they're like, cool, let's do it. And so we make it, and then we can decide if it looked great, and it always does, and then we can send out their records to people who own and do production at other labels, because we don't just want to spread the music, we're also spreading, look how pretty this vinyl is. Look how pretty it is.
I've been so impressed at the shift almost. It's been almost like a shift of the art, not only musically and auditory, but also visually, just the cover art on albums, the actual vinyl themselves, the way it's been presented is almost a production in itself.
Well, I think that nothing having this urgency that we always have. I mean, when you look at the things that we've learned from COVID, personally, it has improved my levels of patience immensely. It will be interesting to see if I just go back to being really impatient and after COVID ends, or whether this will be like a lasting effect. But normally bands are like, well, we need it out as soon as possible because we got to go on tour in 7 weeks. And not having that, force behind it has enabled the band to go back and forth with Skippy or whoever they choose to do their art, because we don't always do it. Sometimes Skippy's working with someone in the band that has an artistic vision, and sometimes the bands are like, here's our awesome music, we have no idea what we want it to look like. And so Skippy will listen to it and become inspired and be like, let's do this. And it's not always Skippy. Like have you seen the Drowns range of t-shirts that are the feminist flamethrower?
Yes.
Love those. And it was my friend Raven's idea. She was just like, there should be a t-shirt of that.
So Raven's the one that drew those.
No, she didn't draw them. It was, she came up with the idea.
That's awesome.
And then Rev had a tattooist friend of his draw it up. But just like, it's so wonderful working for a company where somebody suggests something, I talk to the band about it, I take it to the boss, and he's like, sorry.
It's okay.
Take it to the boss, and he's like, that sounds great, let's do it.
And yeah, it's great that you have that support behind you, especially right now. Like you want that,
Right, for sure.
You want to be a team in this. This isn't competition at all. You're promoting the bands within your brand to look and sound their best, and that's fantastic. Yeah.
And if anyone's got a good idea, bring it to the table and we'll discuss it. That's the Pirates Press Records like ethos. The same with bands. If you've got a band you're excited about that maybe want to work with us, bring them to the table and we'll all listen to it. Nothing is dismissed without lots of pairs of eyes and ears on things, which is really, really great work environment.
Yeah, no, we're planning camp. So unfortunately, it's not just Laura and I that are doing this. We do have a very great, and I can't tell if you guys are watching this, you guys are fantastic. Team behind us. Yes.
No, they really are. It's a humbling feeling too. And like, it's very fulfilling to know that like, you're a part of something that other people also give a shit about too, and they want to see the best for it. So it's nice to watch it kind of grow and develop. And I'm excited to see what it's going to turn into. But it's that same idea, like we are not the only two that make decisions. It goes right through our whole team, because it's not just about Terry and I. We're not doing camp just for us. We're doing it for everybody. We're doing it for our whole community. And I feel like that goes to say for Pirates Press too. Like, that's not just for you guys, it's for everyone. You want everyone to listen to your music. So of course it's not going to be something that.
Yeah. And if somebody is really passionate about it and they bring it to the table, great. As long as it doesn't suck, most of us can be like, awesome, let's try this. Let's see how they fit in. Let's see how it does. Let's see how we like working with them. Only ever has, we don't do contracts. It's all like handshake deals, agreements, and the way it's supposed to be, because we're fucking punks. And I love working like that. I really, really love working like that, because it's based on a model of mutual respect, cooperation, and this like understanding that we're all working towards the same goal of spreading music, art within our community.
And yeah, you guys have been, I definitely want to send a kudos, because you guys have been nailing it. I just love seeing your stuff come out. And you'll see Laura and I are going to be, the week we shoot this, you've seen that My Sunday Spin was Ashes of Drowns, because their album was fantastic. I really
I love that record.
It's
so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
And there's bands that did tons of live streaming, acoustic live streaming in the beginning of the pandemic, which got me through some really rough evenings. Watching Andy and Rev play was just, and then like comment, you're sitting on your phone and you're commenting with your friends whilst you're watching it. It was a very unique experience to the first 3-4 months of COVID, I think, because eventually everybody kind of got burnt out on that and figured out different coping mechanisms. But in the beginning, that was like, you'd be on a Tuesday and you'd be like, oh God. And it's like, okay, I've got that to look forward to on Friday. And for me, it helped immensely.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there too. It's nice to be able to like, you're watching this. You're not right there live, but still they're giving that to you. And also to be able to like, I could be watching it with you from New York, Right. Like I watched the Barstool Preachers live stream with our friend Paul from the UK. And I was like, we've never been to a show together. So the fact that we're sitting here like, oh, that was really great. Did you see that part? It's a really unique kind of feeling that I think we all like needed at the time, like, okay, this is a positive during all of this negativity.
And even when two things to say on that, even when you are at a show with a friend, the music's too loud for you to comment to each other. And by the time the next couple of songs are finished, you've forgotten what you would have said. Whereas when you're messaging each other whilst you're watching it, it's different. And then the other thing I was going to say was, I think you really got to see who was so talented that could just pick up a guitar and play. I mean, for me personally, I knew Rev from the Drowns was really talented. I did not know Andy was that talented, and he blew me away. And Jesse from the Agrolites, with all of his dedications for donations he did on his Instagram, and he was playing so many standards, like Frank Sinatra songs, and just like Dean Martin songs and just really Beatles songs, stuff that, you know, you just don't associate with the singer of a punk band. But freaking Jesse can sing anything. He can play and sing anything. Got to the point where I was just like, Jesse, can we just have a show at Alex's bar when everything opens back up, where you just play Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin songs, please and thank you? Like, we probably could. Yeah, maybe. You know, like stuff like that was really interesting. And then all the people that went very quiet, you have to kind of like think things through and be like, well, maybe you're not doing it because you have anxiety or you're depressed or because you're a doctor. You know what I mean? Like the drummer from the Territories didn't do much because their drummer's a doctor and he was working and he's probably
busy
80 hours a week. So there's all these different things that you have to like know and understand and be like, well, if people can play a great set with an acoustic guitar, it's probably because they're in a good place to be able to do so. And that's awesome because they're then giving back and helping us get through it.
Yeah, a good point on that. And one that I still, you know, we kind of forget because we're so used to watching bands playing and their set that we often forget that they came from a completely different background musically. Some of them were either grown up through family or took lessons. You know, I'm always amazed when some musicians will play classicals, and especially like on the piano, and they'll just like break out like Mozart, and it's like, oh yeah, and you know, part of you's like, oh yeah, you would have like taken piano lessons and learned how to
right. Yeah, Jesse from the Everlights was like a musical theater kid. Who knew? I didn't know until last year.
Yeah, and it's kind of given that kind of the sneak peek behind, you know,
right,
in their own like living rooms and stuff like that. Sometimes you kind of look at the art that's like sitting in their walls and stuff and you're like, oh cool, that's, you know, not your show poster, but it's like, say, The Descendants or something like that. You'll kind of find like little tidbits of the internet to me is just the amount of stuff that we can do right now is just amazing. And if your band has been able to do it, thank you, because
thank you.
We are here for it. And thank you, Vic, too, for your, you know, you guys are still putting stuff out. And
I mean, it has kept me sane working 40 hours a week, you know, like having, I think that would have driven me mad if I had been one of the people home, because I live on my own as well, you know, so the isolation of being home without any direction, I feel like would have been hard for me. But I also understand for somebody else trying to work during this would have been harder for them. But for me, I can mostly turn off and focus. I have good concentration, I guess. So it is. You don't need to thank me for doing the thing that makes me happiest, because I love my job and I love being part of this community. So, and it has really, like, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I've watched enough Netflix and Hulu in the evenings to know that it would have absolutely killed me if I'd been watching it 8 hours a day as well.
No kidding. Well, I definitely, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I want to say a big thank you for taking the time to speak with us and doing what makes us most happiest, which is, you know, getting the opportunity to talk to you and the community, because this community, as I always say, is the best community.
Absolutely.
So Laura, where do we find our stuff? And actually, Vic, where do we find your stuff if anyone wants to buy all the things? Subhuman?
PiratesPressRecords.com. It's straightforward. Yeah, you can, and you know, you can follow social media, Pirates Press Records. And if you want to look at the pressing plant side of things, that's Pirates Press. My Instagram is Vic Simba, VIQUE SIMBA, if you want to look at pictures of my dog. Because normally I have a very full and happy, busy life, and you can see me doing lots of things. But right now, there's puppy and kitten pictures, which actually seems to make a lot of people very happy.
It's so cute.
Who doesn't love puppies and kittens, right?
Absolutely.
We love all the puppies and kittens.
All right. Well, again, because I know I'm going to screw this up, Laura, where do people find us and what do they do? Because I'm just brutal.
Okay, everyone. So make sure when you're watching this right now, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next exclusive that we put out. We do our Sunday spins, all that fun stuff. We'll also be bringing you guys all of the information for Camp Pennsylvania right here. So make sure that you're always watching. Follow Riot Squad Media on Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you follow Camp Pennsylvania as well. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be more lineup announcements coming and all that good stuff. And we'll catch you guys later. Thank you.